Welcome to the Kirkpatrick Podcast, bridging traditions and trends in learning and performance evaluation. Whether you're a seasoned learning professional or just starting out, join us as we dive into the Kirkpatrick model like never before. Through stories and insights, we are fusing time-honored methods with cutting-edge innovations to help you navigate the ever-evolving world of learning and performance evaluation. Welcome back, everyone. It's Vanessa and Jim, your favorite L&D podcast hosts, sharing all about the Kirkpatrick model and learning and performance and evaluation. Jim, how are you today?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I feel strong and connected to people, and I'll take it whenever I can get that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, today's podcast is, I think I might have said this to you. I almost wish this was a Halloween episode because it could be a little dreary, but also could be it's going to have a positive, uplifting message at the end. We are talking about the first 3 fatal flaws of evaluation. Are you excited? You ready?
You know what? The fatal flaws is that's pretty strong, isn't it? I mean, instead of things you should watch out for, take notice of, but those words fatal. I mean, I wonder from your perspective, what does fatal mean? Fatal to what? What's going to die?
Yeah. You know what I love about that word in particular, is that it is so strong. I think sometimes when we use phrasing that doesn't stop us in our tracks, not that it goes in one ear and out the other, but it just doesn't have the same hold as a fatal flaw. So for me, I love that this really talks about the true severity of these things. So when we get to one of them in particular, it's actually certainly, I would say the second one that we're talking about today is definitely a fatal flaw. I mean, they all are, but you'll see these things happen. And so that's what I love about the idea of calling it fatal, right? It really does get you to stop and take notice. And it really can, kill the evaluation process or the buy-in from others to want to evaluate, and almost in a sense, kill the work that you're doing with the model. What about you, Jim?
Yeah. Well, I think especially if you look at these 3 together, and I know we're going to do 3 more later, there's a total of 6. And together, and even separately, what I think fatality would be the senior leaders saying, you haven't demonstrated any value. All you've demonstrated is cost. And that I've seen organizations where it's fatal because the senior leaders say, we're cutting your budget, or we're disbanding your corporate university, or we're going to swallow you up by HR or something. And, these are so prevalent too. These aren't just one-offs kind of thing that only occasionally happen. I think anyone who's listening is going to say, oh, we do that. Ooh, we do that too. Oh, no, not the third one. Because they're so common and so traditional. You can see I'm already getting all hyped up about it. So I better just stop there and let you go.
Good thing it's cool in Georgia, because you're getting hot under the collar on these.
Yes, I got a light shining on me here.
So the first fatal flaw that we have for evaluation is waiting until the end of a program to evaluate. So what does that mean to you, Jim?
Well, I could think of examples, but probably most people that are listening to this or watching this will be an example, because typically what is done is, let's wait till the training's over before we do any evaluating, and to check to see what happened. And it's even worse when it comes to the fatal flaw in the business side of things, the workplace, where you wait to evaluate 90 days, for instance. That number ring a bell for somebody? Waiting 90 days to find out, how did it go out there? Or a year to find out, did it work, at level 4? And what we need to do is take a lesson from you and a lot of the people that work with you and for you, Vanessa, as instructional designers. They don't just slap something together and think, well, this sounds pretty good. You guys do storyboarding, and what is the intent of all this, and how do we plan for it, right? Storyboarding. I'm getting
Yeah.
used to seeing that with the new people that I'm getting to know from Anchor, and they storyboard something and plan for it rather than just throw something together at the end. We need to learn from
hmm
that.
Yeah, and thank you for the lovely comments and feedback on the team. We particularly are very driven by, and we are very intentional about making sure that our customers are very aware of exactly where we are in the process, why we are making the decisions that we are. And we are getting their feedback along the way, so that they can buy into the evaluation. But with that as well, what I was thinking about also is waiting until the end of the design process to design what the evaluation would be. Right.
Oh,
So I had a conversation um, with with someone who had reached out to KP looking for an impact study. And he shared with me and goes, well, what if we don't get the data that we're looking for? And I was like, well, you might not get the data that you're looking for. And here are the reasons why. And that's because, you didn't design with the end in mind, right? You weren't designing with the idea of how are we going to evaluate? What are we going to ask people to track? What are we going to ask people to provide feedback on? It's a lot harder to give people feedback or to ask people to provide feedback that 90 days later, right? Because you're asking them
yeah.
to do something else on their plate. Whereas if I told you, this is going to your investment in part of the program, right? And what I'm going to need from you, you can plan for it, right? You have so much on our plate, so many things to do, that if I can help you plan for it so it doesn't feel as much of a surprise, especially with the level 3 stuff, it makes it a lot easier. So it's really about, yeah, definitely waiting until the end of the program to evaluate, because then you start designing the evaluation. You're tired by then. I'm not going to
Ah,
lie.
that's right.
By the time I get to that part of the process, like usually right after the storyboard, I'm so overlooking at the module or, the first round of design that you just get so tired. So now to put all of your effort into the evaluation process, you lose a little steam.
Now I'm writing a bunch of stuff down. I'm not just writing notes about random things. I'm writing what you're saying because this is really good stuff, and I don't want it to just wave off into the atmosphere here because you brought up
Mhm.
impact study. And that's something that we do, and it's very helpful for people because we teach them not just what was the impact of something, but what led to the impact. Level
Mhm.
one reaction and two learning, and especially what kind of things were executed at level three to bring about the results. So, even if people don't follow what you're saying, and that's weave in things, and I think you said we want to know where we are at any given time, not just at the end. There's going to
Mhm.
be a few people out there that are going to do an excellent job with the training, an excellent job with it, with implementing it, leading it, but it's going to be minimal, and it's going to be the minority of people will do that because when we do impact studies, we always find goodness, but it's very random, and we have to look under every nook and cranny and rock to find it. What we're talking about here is will you wait to the end? There's really no focus on where are we with this class? How's it going? And what kind of adjustments do we need to make along the way? And even more important and more fatal is when you wait, when people are back to work and they're supposedly doing what they've learned to do. The leaders are doing, the mentors are doing, touch bases are all happening. And if you aren't evaluating those things we call required drivers, you're leaving it to chance. And usually that chance ends up as a fatal uh, uh, report. And the
Mhm.
senior leader saying, I'm not seeing the value that I was told that we would get from this. So I really, you know, we're also talking about the focus on level one and level two. The smile sheets, and did they like it, and were they involved, and did they find relevance? after the fact. And level two, did they learn anything? Let's give them a test after the fact. And very little is attention in getting the the pulse during the training, during the interaction to find out, are we getting a weak pulse? We need to do something to charge it, or is it a strong pulse we need to take advantage of? And that together is two things that will pretty much create very minimal results. And we just don't want you to continue doing that, because most of you are. I know you are, because you tell us you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, recapping, the second fatal flaw is focusing on level one reaction and level two learning. And I do hear a lot of that. Uh, I heard it before my time coming into KP, observed it for sure. And then, now part of Kirkpatrick, I hear it more as well. And people say, we do level one and we do level two, but level three and level four just never really, kind of lose the steam. We never really go into that. We're never able to reach that. And so, one thing that triggered in my head, I have a couple issues with level two. Maybe this could be a whole other podcast, but I have a lot of issues with level two because um, and not with the level in and of itself, to be clear, with how we execute that level, where we will design knowledge checks and things like that. And the answers are so blatantly obvious, right? What color is the sky? Pink, purple, or blue? And it's like, okay, what are we really testing here? But one of the things that got triggered in my mind, and I'd love to hear more from this on you, Jim. And again, we can certainly put this in another podcast. Is there an opportunity to measure level two even after? Like we're all so used to, at the end of the training, you do the quiz and you get the 80% and then you passed, right? And then you measured level two. Is there an opportunity to maybe do another sort of assessment, let's say 30, 60, 90 days later, to really see,
Uh,
okay, yeah, they passed it because they had just recently were being taught it, but are they retaining it later?
I don't know. No, I do know. I'm just messing with you. That's a really important question, and I think it is important because you want to know, not just did they retain, part of it is they retain it, but what they retained, what did they use? I think, and
Mhm.
usually if they retained it, they retain it by using it, right? Because it isn't just going to magically stick there because there's so much stimulus that's going into our minds, and we're human. What we've learned, unless we exercise with it, is going to fade away. So we really want to find out not just what is it that how is it that you're applying, what kind of help are you getting, all that, but what were the key things that you remember from the training that you've actually been applying, connecting two and three, and those are the things that you've now learned that need to be emphasized in the training, because those are the things
Mhm.
that they remembered and applied. And there's a beautiful way to say, if they don't remember it, probably they're not using it, which probably means we
Mhm.
shouldn't be training it. And there's level one. So really there's a nice way of kind of getting that information in atypical ways, because typically we just, you know, give them a test, knowledge test, to see if they remembered it. And then you could give them a knowledge test later, but who cares? It's what do you remember that has helped you do your job better? That's the opposite of a fatal flaw. That is power at level 3 and 4.
So I think that what you just shared is the solution, right? Is to really have that bridge, right, from that level two over to level three and having the conversations and a word stuck out for me, atypical way
Yeah.
of gathering that information. And what are some of the ways that we can gather that information that they're utilizing it, utilizing what they learned in their job?
Well, I think the best ways have to do with you actually talking to people. If you're in training, you're in L&D, talent management, whatever
Mhm.
you want to call it, talking to them and interviewing them formally, informally, focus groups.
Mhm.
That is really, I think, the best way, because you're really trying to find out not just the 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 content, but what were the things that you actually used? And it also builds relationships when you're talking to people, spending time on the other side of the bridge in the workplace. They're saying, "Wow, what are you doing here?" Well, there's a new sheriff in town. I'm here because we're going to be more part of your workplace in addition to what we're doing in the learning. So I think, I think that uh, I think that having those formal and informal conversations with the line managers and saying, what are you seeing them do? That's different. And what are you hearing that they're learning and how they're applying it? We want to gather from both of them and find out what are the key things that we need to take back to modify our training to make sure that it's targeted. Because it, and I'm telling you, in case you don't, you're training a lot of stuff that is obsolete,
Hmm.
and that it's somebody's competency model or somebody's model of leadership or model of something that's no longer relevant. And that's why, Vanessa, what you're asking is so important, because we don't have time to be dealing with things that somebody's legacy that they're hanging desperately on to. Oh, it's the past. It's I work so hard on it. And what we need to do is spend less time training, and the way we do that is finding out what you said, what's happening at level 3. Let's train to that, because you're probably not going to get more budget the way that you're going. So what you're going to need to do is spend less time and train what's really important to performance, and then move those resources across the bridge to the other side of where you're really building value and building rapport with the people that you need to.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think we have one more for today. What is our third fatal flaw?
These just creep me out. It's like Halloween, like you said. And those who don't know what Halloween is, it's spooky stuff. And that is using single methods and single source. And
Mm,
I'm glad you're all sitting down for this, because what I'm going to tell you, you're going to go, ooh, that's what we do. For level 1, you do a smile sheet, a little survey. Sometimes it's in paper form, sometimes, and more often, it's
mhm,
electronic. And it's asking, what happened? During class, were you satisfied? Are you going to recommend it? Was the lighting good? Was the technology good? Did you learn? And then what we do for level 2, typically single source again, and that is a test, a knowledge
mhm.
test. And Vanessa, you and I've talked about this a lot. Just because I have the knowledge to be a great painter doesn't mean well, I don't even try, because I know I can't paint.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say I'm not the one. My daughter Gianna is. I am not the one.
she is good, isn't she? That's right.
Yeah, she is good.
And the third thing that really grates me is for level 3, 90-day survey, or if you're really on top of things, a 60-day survey to find out what's going on. And even if it's a 30-day survey, it's a single source. Well, in this case, it might be double source, okay, where we're asking the participants and their managers.
Mm,
And we think, wow, we're really getting sophisticated. No, you're just staying in tradition. That's fatal, because you've got to get more information. You've got to be talking to people. You've got to be observing people. You've got to have rubrics. You have to have focus groups. You have to look for
mhm.
historical comparisons. What did we do? What's working? What what
Yeah.
what are the differences we're making? Because I'm just going to spell it out for you. We're kidding ourselves if we're thinking we're getting enough actionable intelligence by a smile sheet, a knowledge test, and a 90-day survey. You are just guessing at what kind of interventions you should make based on that very, very limited intelligence.
And to thank you for sharing that, because I also will say, to be fair too, especially when we're talking about level 3, so important that we're getting the correct insight into what's happening. If all we're utilizing are things like surveys, well, I know, I've felt this at times and I've heard this feedback. I don't want to truly give my feedback because I'm fearful of retaliation.
Right.
And everyone is concerned. Anyone can say, oh, this is an anonymous survey, but do you honestly believe that? I think a lot of them are, right? But there's always that thing in the back of your mind.
Yep.
Okay, maybe they can track it in some way back to me. Or because we're talking about my own development and my, how I'm doing my manager, maybe, I don't want to share too much that would be, identifiable. So Of course, I'm not gonna, I'm either not gonna take the survey, right? Or I'm going to not be totally truthful into how I'm applying it because I don't want to be, I don't want to cause any issues. So if we don't want to use single methods or sources, what are some other things that we can do at those different levels in order to gather more of the feedback that we need?
Well, we call it at Kirkpatrick the trifecta. We don't want to
Mm.
say, oh, here's 10 things you should try because you just can't manage 10. It's just overwhelming. But guess what the first one is? Surveys. Okay. Don't think that we're
Yeah,
anti-survey. We're saying,
we're
but have
not.
a targeted survey with just a few items at level 3, for instance, the behavior, the application, to find out to what degree are you applying it, and if not,
Mhm.
what are the barriers? If so, what are the reasons that are helping you to do this? And a survey can get some information from about that.
Yeah.
The second one is actually talking to people, going to them, using technology somehow, and being very gracious and very interested and listening to find out what's working, what isn't. And see, there's the difference. Not asking what worked so much as what is working. And Vanessa, back to you saying, where are we now? Because if you wait 90 days and things haven't worked, oh well, we're in big trouble. So what you want to do is catch things within a month or a week or even a few days. By the third part of the trifecta is actually observation and work review to find out, are the people that have learned it actually applying it correctly. And that to
Hmm.
me is pretty bulletproof. It's pretty airtight that you're going to get enough intelligence, not just about what isn't working to correct it, but what is working and what is even superseding the expectations. And you want to grab that and interview people and find out what is the secret sauce that you're doing so we can spread it among others. But if you're doing the targeted survey, uh,
Hmm.
interviewing the leaders and the graduates, and also with direct observation, you're going to get a lot of good intelligence and be able to make intelligent modifications during the journey in the workplace in order to get results, in order to hear job well done.
Yes, thank you. I cannot agree more that needing to have that trifecta. And I started to think as you were speaking of some different organizations like Gallup, Deloitte, all these large research firms. What do? They do the survey. They also do focus groups and interviews, and they ask people what they're doing because they go beyond that survey. And then they do have observation, right? So they have the
Yes,
opportunity to go
yes.
and check to see what people are actually doing because on the job. And so these are, sources that we trust so much, right? To be helping us identify what are the trends, what are the things that we should be looking out for. Why wouldn't we be doing the same for our own organizations, right?
Why not? And you know what else, Vanessa, that really upsets me, I'll say, is when people say, oh, surveys are the most valid way because we get numbers. I'll tell
Oh.
you, right? You get metrics, and somehow those metrics are truthful. For all the reasons you said, they're really not truthful, because they're going to tell
Hmm.
you what they think you want to hear, and they're going to tell you
Yep.
so that they don't have retribution, and so that the L&D can thump themselves and say, "Hey, look at the value we're bringing," and much of it is just it it's just not true. But the other ones, are more valid, and I'm not saying, oh, the other stuff is just anecdotal. No, use rubrics, the science of rubrics, to put numbers to the behaviors that you're observing. And also when it comes to interviewing people, talking to them, find out, what did you used to do and what kind of results are you getting, numbers, and what are you doing now that we're all working together, and what kind of impact are you starting to see with numbers. So watch out for that metrics thing. People think, oh, we got metrics on a survey, metrics from a knowledge test. We've got some real good, strong intel. Not.
You really don't. No,
Really.
right, and you really don't, and you only have that initial, that initial reaction, right, or that initial test. It's not really telling you how it's being actioned on, and I will say, our senior leaders may say, "Oh, great, 90% of people passed in the moment." But 90 days later, when they were hoping to, see an increase in sales or see a decrease in customer complaints, or see in a year later less churn from employees, when they're not seeing those things, they're going to say, but wait, you said everybody scored a 90 or an 80 and above. Or you said everyone said, 90% of people said this was the best thing since sliced bread. Why are we not seeing the results? So, I would say that's a huge consequence for us by not actually going deeper with some of these flaws and really going beyond them and still doing them. That you're doing a disservice to yourself, your organization, and your
It's good.
team.
And Vanessa, when you say yourself, who gets the blame for that? Training gets the blame. And it isn't. Oftentimes the training is really good. Sometimes it's more than they need and not targeted, but the training is good. It's not the problem. The problem is that that, that learning and performance are not working together to monitor what's actually happening in the workplace to make sure right from the start that there's performance support and accountability that is going to create those numbers. But that's touchy material, so it's much easier to blame the scapegoat of training. Then what do? We throw another model. Let's try a different leadership model. Let's try another onboarding model and see if that works. It won't unless we're, as you said, I'm going to, again, what's happening now, unless we're seeing if those things are actually being applied in the workplace. And that's ongoing rather than what happened.
Yeah. We could just go on and on these
Yeah.
fatal flaws, but I want to save a little bit more and do the next three in the next episode. Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah. I've kind of given what we got on these. Don't want to overdo it here. We'll save a little for the next one.
I'm going to save a little bit because I want to get in the next episode, talk a little bit more about why are we seeing this be so prevalent within our industry? And we'll
Yeah.
chat a little bit about resistance and how to manage that resistance. I think that'll be really a great way to close us out. So, friends, I want to thank you all so much for listening to today's podcast. I myself actually have been picking up quite a few nuggets and tidbits to take back to Jim and Wendy and the team to have more conversation about how can we support people on their evaluation journey to avoid these fatal flaws. And I hope you all got the same as well. We will see you in the next episode. And as always, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you ever have any questions you want us to chat on, make sure you reach out to us and we'll get that scheduled for a future podcast episode. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.